We are so happy to have another series of wellness workshops. This is our second Thursday workshop, and we're going to talk about navigating uncertainty today. And before we get too much further, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the beautiful lands of the Quasepson and Lekwungen on which Royal Roads lies. And although we're all joining from various places in the world, we're so grateful to have that as the common connection that we have on Royal Roads. And I am just about 15 minutes outside in Machosen on the traditional lands of the Chiana families and ancestors, and just so enjoy being around the nature. I live near an estuary where birds are coming and going constantly, and so grateful to see the seasons changing. And I've lived here for a year this week, so it's kind of a neat week for me to have lived in an environment for a year and watching the changes that happen. So today we're going to have a chance to do a little check-in. We're going to do a couple grounding exercises, one at the beginning and one at the end of our time together. We're going to talk a little bit about the impacts of uncertainty and how COVID-19 has been impacting all of us over the past year. And then we'll look at some strategies for managing uncertainty, specifically looking at how to shift negative thinking patterns. We're going to look at a circle of control exercise, talk about gratitude, and then have an opportunity to do that second grounding exercise and check out. So let's just take a moment then to check in. You'll see on your screen there's some little emojis, and just take a moment, take a deep breath and think about, how are you feeling today? Where are you at? And however you are joining us is absolutely where and how you should be. If you're comfortable to do so, just click on the little pencil on your top left of your screen and maybe just circle however it is you're feeling today. Someone feeling a bit quiet, someone feeling tired. Yeah, I think I've been hearing from a lot of students feeling a bit tired. Nervous, frustrated, okay, yeah. A lot of emotions we expect as students are dealing with a lot in their busy lives. We're coming into, well, many of us fall in winter, still dealing with this pandemic. Got someone feeling happy, great. And I see someone wrote busy, rushed, okay, yeah. So probably feeling pretty stretched and overwhelmed, some of you, as you're trying to balance a lot of different areas of your life. So thank you for taking that moment to check in. As a second part of our check-in, I'd like to just ask you to think a little bit on a scale of 1 to 5. What level of stress are you feeling? Acknowledging we're all dealing with different stressors in our lives. Where are you? 1 being cool as a cucumber, 5 being stressed to the max. Whereabouts are you? And again, if you're comfortable to use your pencil and write on the screen about, what number approximately you're feeling today, or write it in the chat box. And if you prefer to keep it to yourself, that's totally okay too. Yeah, so I see we have a few 3s, couple 3.5s, 4s. Yeah, okay. So it seems as though of our group, we've got 14 of us together today, that in general people are feeling a little maxed, a little stretched. So our hope is that throughout our hour together today, we will help you even bring that number down by 0.5 or so. And you'll come away with some strategies to continue to be monitoring and checking in with yourself to try and bring those numbers down. So we often say if you're feeling about a 4 and a 4 or 5, then it's probably a really good time to reach out for some support, such as our counseling services or other supports you have in your life, and acknowledging that throughout your time at Royal Roads, throughout your lives, we will all be going up and down and hitting those 2s and 3s and sometimes 4s, and sometimes that's a manageable amount of stress, and sometimes it's a little bit more than we can manage, and that's okay. So please remember that we are available as a resource. All right, so one strategy that of course is incredibly valuable when we're dealing with stress and uncertainty is practicing some form of mindfulness, some grounding or meditation type exercises. So I'll invite you to join me, and we'll just spend a few minutes doing some belly breathing incorporated with a bit of a body scan. And so I will just invite you to make yourselves as comfortable as you can, wherever you might be sitting, standing. Perhaps some of you are even lying down and just listening, which is wonderful. And start by taking a couple nice deep belly breaths. So if this is new to you, a great way to ensure you're taking a deep breath from your lower diaphragm is to put a hand on your lower belly and take a nice big inhale through your nose. And see if you can feel that lower belly pushing out, extending a little bit. So we don't want to feel too much movement in our chest, but that lower belly extending and holding for a second or two. And as you exhale through your mouth, feeling that lower belly contract back in. So I'll just invite you to do a couple more of those at your own pace. And on your next inhale in through your nose, just start to wiggle your toes a little bit, maybe crunch your feet up into a ball as much as you can. And as you exhale through your mouth, relax your feet and toes, letting them sink into the floor beneath you. And we're going to go through that series through our whole body. So next we'll do our calves. Take a deep breath in through your nose, tensing up your calf muscles of your lower leg, holding and release. Exhale through your mouth, relaxing those calf muscles. Next inhale in, we'll do our thighs and our buttocks. Tensing those muscles as we're sitting in our chair. And as you exhale through your mouth, feel your body sink back into your chair or wherever it is you're sitting, letting all the tension seep out of your muscles. Next, we'll do our kind of the core of our body as you take a deep breath in, tensing your abs, your chest, your back as much as you can. It's hard to do as you take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, again, release all of those muscles through your core. Next, let's do our arms and our hands. So crunch your hands into a ball, tense up your arm muscles as you take a deep inhale through your nose. Hold for a second or two. And exhale, wiggle those fingers, relax your arm muscles. Next, let's do our shoulders, bringing our shoulders up to our ears, tensing them up, taking a deep breath in through our nose. And as we exhale, drop your shoulders down, giving them a little squirm and wiggle. And the last one, let's scrunch up all those muscles in our face, our scalp as much as we can. Make a funny face, scrunching up into a little ball-like shape of our face muscles as you inhale. Holding, and then as you exhale, relax your face. Let's do one more breath all together. Nice big inhale and hold. And this one, just any muscle that you feel any tension left in, just release. Letting go of all those stresses and worries. And I encourage you to, as we move through the rest of the session, to just keep that nice, slow, deep breathing going. It really, as many of you might be aware, the research again and again just shows how powerful breathing, mindfulness is. Within 8 weeks, it actually starts to change the brain. So really powerful, really simple tool. And every session we introduce 2 different grounding or mindfulness exercises. Okay, so thank you for joining me in that. So I'd like to check in with all of you. We'll have a little poll here. So of course, COVID-19 has caused a great deal of uncertainty in our lives and impacted us all in different ways, and in some very similar ways. So I'd like to just get a sense from you, what's particularly challenging for you right now in terms of uncertainty? So is it not knowing when you're going to be able to see family and friends, the uncertainty around work, maybe some financial uncertainty or strain, not being able to plan for the future? A lot of people are really starting to think about the holidays and how it's going to look different this year. Is it your health or the health of others that's particularly on your mind? And again, I invite you to maybe take that pencil and circle whatever is really on your mind today in terms of uncertainty and stress, or write something in the chat box, or at any point, please jump on the microphone as well. We'd love to keep this informal and keep it a conversation. So if anyone would like to share, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, great. Thank you. So I see Daryl says 1 and 4, Candace 3 and 5. Yeah. Managing concerns and uncertainty of friends and family who are in harder hit areas. So worrying about people we care about. Not being able to plan. Yes, definitely. I know for some students, as Frances is highlighting, not knowing what's next, right? As some of you might be getting close to the end of your programs at Royal Roads, thinking about work and career. For some of you who are planning to be in on-campus programs, I know there's been a lot of uncertainty whether you'll be on campus at all in the new year. So yeah, lots on our minds. Certainty around work, yeah. So it looks like it's, in different ways we can identify with all 5 of these. And if there's anything else that's not on the list that you'd like to share, please do. Yeah, Francis, acknowledging the health for loved ones in hard hit areas is really tough. Yeah, it's been hard. And I think the election last week, I know it's hit a lot of us pretty hard too. Some of the uncertainty that we've been dealing with that on top of COVID and just our regular day-to-day lives. So just acknowledging it hasn't been an easy year, and so wonderful to see you all here today and being proactive about taking care of yourselves, and give yourself some credit for being here, still working through your programs and balancing all of the competing priorities in your life. Okay, so just in an effort to and new national policies. Candace's mentioning, yes, yeah. So things are constantly changing. I know every day we're kind of checking in with news to see what restrictions might be in place, things changing day to day. So acknowledging that is a lot of stress, and very fitting for this slide we're on now is just acknowledging that with uncertainty comes a huge number of different emotions, fear, stress, grief, feeling overwhelmed. And when COVID first hit, we talked quite a lot about this concept of anticipatory grief. So knowing that we might not be able to have plans for the future in the same way, a loss of safety and security, hitting us at both micro levels, life such as within our homes, right? I know for me, I have 2 young kids, and so childcare or lack thereof has been one of the most challenging things that have hit our family at kind of a micro level. And at the macro level, just the great uncertainty of where is the world going? Environmental impacts, societal impacts. So acknowledging that there's this anticipatory grief that we're all dealing with on top of the stress of being in such an uncertain time. And building on that, of course, this is a collective grief, a collective stress, and we're all into this together, which in some ways is so wonderful because it creates such a beautiful sense of community and support and being able to have opportunities like this for conversations and coming together, and also acknowledging that that can present its own challenges. I often hear from students that they're feeling they don't want to share what's going on for them in their lives, their challenges, their stresses, because their friends have so much going on themselves. Their families dealing with their own issues related to COVID and the uncertainty and the stress we're facing. And so in some ways, it has made it maybe harder to rely on each other because we don't want to put too much on our friends and family who are also going through the pressures and stress of this uncertain time. Oh, if anyone has anything to add at any point, again, please jump in, ask questions, jump on the microphone. Daryl says, yes, we're all in the same storm, but not all in the same boat. Yeah, I love that. I've heard that a couple times recently, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that we are all facing this in our own ways, and doing the best we can to support each other and ourselves. So thank you for sharing that, Daryl. It looks different for all of us. So I wanted to share this image and just this concept of survival versus learning brain. And I'm not sure if anyone familiar with this concept. Essentially, what it is helping us to understand what is happening to our brain as a result of being in this rather long-term stress and uncertainty. And so we are in a bit of a survival response when we're faced with this kind of stress. And so that means we're operating more from a place of survival, fight, flight, or freeze response, which is in the amygdala part of our brain, that red stem that you can see in the image of the brain. And that can be a very tiring place to be. Long-term impacts, our cortisol levels are up, that stress hormone. Sugar in our bloodstream is higher than usual. Our amygdala is being overactive. So it's getting actually better and better at being in that kind of survival response zone. And the prefrontal cortex, which is the yellow, the prefrontal lobe that you can see in the image, that's where our executive functioning is located. And so in order to be using our best cognitive functioning, our rational thinking, that's the part of the brain we want to be operating from. And when we're all in this survival zone, dealing with a lot of uncertainty and stress, we may not be spending as much time in that area. And as a result, that means it may be harder to learn. So this is something that was presented to faculty and staff at Royal Roads in a presentation not long ago, to just acknowledge that we really need to do what we can to support each other and support students to try and manage stress in healthy ways, to build community, to support each other, so that we can be doing whatever we can to be operating from that prefrontal lobe, to try and support the executive functioning that we need to be successful in our studies, as well as other areas of our life. So just want to acknowledge that is something to be aware of, and why we're spending some time talking about how to navigate uncertainty, how to manage stress. This workshop series is really all geared toward that, to try and help us to find strategies so we can shift to be operating from the prefrontal cortex and to look after ourselves, so that the long-term stress of this uncertainty doesn't have long-lasting impacts on our mind and body, which it can, right, over time. I'm sure you're familiar with some of the impacts, on our digestive system, our heart, our blood pressure, by being in a survival zone for too long. Any thoughts or questions about that? Or Francis, anything to add?
Yeah, when I'm talking to students, I often just use the words flooded and activated, like how, hyper and hypo modes, so that you can kind of start to gauge yourself, where you are, what your triggers are, and how to self-soothe and bring yourself back into a deactivated sort of state. So those are other words to the same themes and vocab here. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Francis. Yeah, and bringing it back to, that belly breathing, the body scan, those types of grounding exercises, that's the type of strategy that we can do to shift from the amygdala to the more executive functioning parts of the brain. And if we are feeling triggered, being able to have those tools to help to calm the central nervous system. Yeah, thanks for that, Francis. And anyone else? Any thoughts to add here? All right. Well, let's keep forging forward. So the first strategy, I guess, in addition to the mindfulness and grounding that we've already been talking about, the other major component we wanted to talk about today is shifting negative thinking patterns. And so we, unfortunately, as humans, in order to promote survival, we have a bit of a negative bias. And so our minds are hardwired for negative and anxious thinking patterns. You've probably noticed you're really good at them. A lot of us are very good at these anxious thinking patterns. And so I just want to, again, pause here for a moment and think about, what kind of negative or anxious thoughts tend to occupy your mind. So you'll see a list there in front. Again, feel welcome to make a note in the chat box or circle if one stands out to you that you tend to focus on one of these, or these automatic negative or anxious thinking patterns you've noticed coming up for you in your life. Yeah, we've got someone noticing self-doubts, day-to-day worries, anxieties about the future. Yeah. Okay. So just being aware of, that negative bias and what might be coming up for you. Let's talk a little bit about how we might monitor those. And before we do that, just acknowledging that there's been some wonderful research done by Barbara Fredrickson around the ratio that we need to stay well and flourish in terms of our thinking patterns. And so what she determined is that we need 3 positive sentiments or emotions for every negative emotion or sentiment in order to find balance in our lives or to flourish. So we know we're wired to hold on to the negative ones for longer. They tend to come a little more naturally and easily. But we can get better at the positive sentiments with practice. And so you'll notice that the ratio is 3-to-1, not 3-to-0. And that, I think, is really important to acknowledge, is that we're not expecting to completely get rid of negative, anxious thinking patterns completely. We know that's part of life, and actually that helps us to, in some ways, stay grounded to reality. And we want to enjoy the various ups and downs and different emotions that life brings to us. So we don't want to deplete those negative thoughts to 0, but acknowledging that to be happy, to feel that flourishing capacity through life, we're aiming for that 3-to-1 ratio. And that takes some work and it takes some practice. So one approach is through cognitive behavioral therapy, which some of you might be familiar with. It was developed in the 60s, originally by Dr. Aaron Beck, and has evolved over the decades. And this concept, I guess, the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy is this concept that our thoughts directly impact how we feel and how we behave, and vice versa. You'll see the arrows go through both directions. And so in order to try and change how we're feeling or change our behavior, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy approaches, usually start by thinking about our thoughts and trying to change our thoughts so that we can change how we feel and how we behave. And so you'll see a little diagram here that we can kind of work through to understand how this process might work. So if we think about an upcoming challenge or an event, say something that makes us feel a little bit anxious, let's say a presentation at work or school. So we have this presentation coming up next week. We start to form some thoughts and beliefs about that event. So we might start to think, oh gosh, I'm feeling really nervous. I don't know if I actually know the content as well. Are people going to find out I don't really know what I'm talking about? That kind of imposter syndrome we've talked about in past sessions. Am I going to bomb this? Am I going to be found out? What are people going to think about me? These kind of thoughts and beliefs, of course, create some pretty strong emotional consequences. And those emotional consequences, what do you think those might be? What kind of emotions would you be feeling if you were thinking that way about an upcoming presentation? Feel free to write in the chat box or just think to yourself about what emotions you might be feeling if you were starting to think about this anxious upcoming event. Well, I just said one of the words. Perhaps you might be feeling anxious. You might be noticing some fear, worried, panicked. Yeah, thanks, Daryl. Yeah, absolutely. We might be starting to feel that fight, flight, or freeze response kick in. Nerves, absolutely. Yeah, some nervousness. Anxiety, procrastination, fear, Francis notes. Yeah, absolutely. And these are certainly things we hear a lot from students. And again, acknowledging some anxiety, some stress can be healthy and actually help us to perform better. But if it starts to build over time to feeling more panicked, very strong symptoms of anxiety, those emotional consequences can be pretty significant and might actually impact our performance negatively. So the CBT approach is to challenge those beliefs. And so you'll see a list on the right with some questions of how we might challenge those beliefs and thoughts that we're having around the upcoming event. So first, we want to calm down and kind of take a few deep belly breaths to calm our central nervous systems. And then we might ask some questions like, is this belief thoughtful? Is it realistic? Is it helpful? Do I have evidence to support my belief? Is this a hassle or a horror? That's a big one that I find really helpful for myself, is thinking about, is this a hassle or a horror? Kind of getting that perspective. What would I tell a friend in this situation? That one can be really powerful for people too, because we're often so much more kind to our friends and our family than we are to ourselves. We tend to show others a lot more compassion than we do to ourselves. And then you'll see a comment about squishing ants. And in some previous work I did with kids, we would refer to automatic negative thoughts as ants. And we would even give kids little plastic ants or have them draw ants on paper and keep them in their pockets. And if they notice some anxious or negative thinking patterns forming, squishing that ant, trying to challenge those beliefs and actually physically, feeling that ant in their pocket and squishing it, or imagining, challenging the thought that we're having. Some people imagine a big stop sign to try and give themselves space to pause and ask themselves some of these questions. Anything to add to your thoughts or questions?
I always like to say, is this fact or fiction? Is this facts, or in this day and age when we're talking about fake news and things like that, what are we thinking up for ourselves? It's just our opinion about ourselves. And then nice to revisit facts. Did you get a good mark on your last assignment or your last presentation? Well, that's the truth of the matter. So bringing up things that you know to be true at these times. It's very using compassion, speaking to yourself, quieting that inner critic, and being the gentle friend and coach that you need to be at this time. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, great examples. I think that evidence, one, can be so powerful. Looking to how we've performed in the past, finding some evidence to support that we're going to be successful in this next step. And so essentially that brings us to the orange square of replacing with rational beliefs, right? Trying to challenge those negative, anxious thinking patterns and replace them with something more rational, more realistic, more kind. So I encourage you to maybe think about an upcoming challenge or something that is worrying you in your life, and maybe just make note of this approach. And we're going to look at something that's similar, but a slightly different take as well. which is based on acceptance and commitment therapy. I'm not sure if anyone's ever had any experience with this. It's a little bit more recent than traditional CBT and certainly is similar in some ways. And so the foundation of this is that we don't challenge those negative or anxious thinking patterns so much as we accept them, we're aware of them, and we think about our values, our priorities, and we take action to move forward in a way that works well for us. So ways that we might do that, unhooking or creating distance from our thoughts or beliefs is a major component of this ACT, this acceptance and commitment therapy approach to diffusing our negative thinking patterns. And so one way that I find works really beautifully with some people is using humor. So actually giving, say, your anxiety or that little negative Nelly voice in your mind, a cartoon character, a name, a funny voice, something that allows you to distance yourself, create some space from you and those anxious or negative thinking patterns. Sometimes you might even want to thank that thought and say, oh, hey, there you are, anxiety. Nice to see you again. Imagine yourself kind of shaking hands, approaching it with some lightness, some levity. Another helpful approach, which is similar to that perspective taking of the hassle or horror in CBT, is zooming out. So imagining you've had one of those camera lenses that allows you to zoom way out, and maybe you're going way up into space and looking back on where you were or where you are in your current life and whatever it is you're feeling worried about. And gaining that perspective, I think, can be so helpful. Like, oh, okay, actually, you know what? I'm really in a fortunate position to be safe and have an opportunity to be challenging myself with whatever this is upcoming. I've got resources. This isn't a life or death horror situation. I just need to, think logically through my next step. Think about my values and my priorities. For some people, imagining your thoughts floating by like clouds or leaves on a stream can allow that unhooking, that distancing from yourself, so that you're not wearing it, you're not feeling it to the same heaviness. And then, as we've talked about, showing self-compassion, practicing mindfulness, these are important parts of this acceptance and commitment of therapy approach to diffusing negative thinking patterns. I hope that makes sense. Anyone has questions, please ask. If one of these approaches, either the CBT or ACT, particularly speaks to you, I'd encourage you to Google, spend some time. There's great worksheets online. We can provide you with some too. Feel free to follow up if there's something particular that stands out to you that you'd like to play around with a little bit. Be happy to provide you with some more information. And there's tons online and some great videos as well. So some of you, we're going to move into another strategy, the circle of control exercise. And some of you may have seen this diagram. It was floating around Facebook and Twitter back in, I think, probably March and April when COVID-19 first really became part of our lives. And we find it really a helpful tool, and we've referred back to it over the past several months. So you'll see it on the outer circle of the diagram, there's a list of things that are out of our control. So things like the actions of others, how long is this going to last, how other people react to me, the amount of toilet paper back when that was a big deal, these things that are outside of our control. And the concept is we place them outside of the circle in an effort to try and visually start to let go of these things. And you'll see in the inside part of the circle are things that we can control. And so things like my positive attitude, turning off the news, limiting social media, my kindness, finding fun things to do at home. When we think about you, as many of you as students at Royal Roads, the amount of time you dedicate to school, the attitude you bring to your learning, how you use the resources at Royal Roads, such as the Writing Center, counseling services, your instructors, your classmates. These types of things are all within your control. And so we want to really focus on those. That's where our energy is better spent. So I encourage you, if it's, at some points you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling a lot of worry and concern about the future and the uncertainty that we may be facing at any given time, this is a great exercise, is just draw a circle on a page and do a bit of a worry download. Placing everything that's outside of your control outside the circle, and then starting to refocus on what are the things that are within your control right now. So let's just take a couple minutes to do this together as a group. So if you're comfortable to click on the little T, the text, or the pencil, and start to write down what are some things that are on your mind that may be outside of your control, and what can you identify that's within your control that might help you to lower your stress levels and be really intentional with your time and your energy. So let's just take a couple minutes to do that together. Awesome. So I see my choices, someone wrote, my self-care. Oh, capstone. Okay. So someone's in the capstone portion of their program. Yeah, absolutely. How you approach that is within your control. My reactions. Yeah. Things outside of control. You've identified the choices of others. Oh, isn't that a hard one to sometimes step back and allow people to make choices that we think very strongly are not in their best interest. But no, we can't control the behavior of others, the choices of others. Public health orders, absolutely. I think like we talked about earlier, we're in a constant state of change and uncertainty and monitoring the different restrictions and public health orders, which adds a great deal of stress and uncertainty and is out of our control. Voting results, yeah, absolutely. Thinking about the election last week, how others behave, economy, weather. Yes, great examples. And then I see, yeah, my vote, right? So that's what's within our control, is how we vote. Exercise, yes, oh, so important. And again, similar like mindfulness and various grounding exercises, the research 100% backs up that exercise can be as effective as medication for symptoms of anxiety, stress, depression. So I'm so glad to see that on the list of what's within our control. How I use my time, I think that's such a big one. And we do have a time management workshop. I think it's coming up next a week from today. And definitely we'll dive a lot into strategies for how to use our time really effectively. So that is absolutely within our control. And there's some great strategies to use so that we feel really empowered by how we're using our time. Great. Well, thank you. That is a really great list. And like I say, I hope this is something that you might be able to take with you at times when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, to do this exercise, or perhaps there's someone in your life, a family member or friend or someone you might like to introduce this to. And I just noticed the perception of others. Yeah, that's a big one. I think as being something that's outside of our control, and much easier said than done to let go of, but certainly we spend a lot of time thinking and worrying about what others think about us. I know we hear from students often they're worried about what classmates and their instructors are thinking, maybe overthinking posts, spending a long time editing and rewriting different assignments. And ultimately, we can do the best we can with the time we have, use our time wisely, do the research, but ultimately how others feel about us is out of our control. Good. Well, thank you for that. That was great. Really great examples. So I think, Frances, were you going to take over this one?
Yeah, I'll chime in here, and I get to talk about gratitude, and I'm feeling very grateful because I have had a stressful week. And Sarah has taken over the bulk of the presentation today very kindly, and left me with some nice ending notes here that I like talking about. So I'm very grateful to her for understanding where I'm at these days. So yeah, the third practice, and you've probably heard it before, but the practice of gratitude. And why do we do this? Well, it's not just to be well-mannered like our mothers wanted us to be. It actually releases all these nice chemicals. There's lots of research, just like mindfulness, there's lots of research out there proving that when we practice gratitude, we actually increase dopamine, serotonin, and all of these wonderful things into our system. And it's a way of self-soothing and deactivating. So perhaps some of you feel free to put in the chat your own particular gratitude practices, but here's a list as well. Some people have a gratitude journal, and they might jot down 2 or 3 things every day that they're grateful for, and it becomes kind of an addictive habit after you practice it for a little while. At first, it might seem hard when you're feeling down. It might be hard to find certain things, but after a while, they can be very small, and then you find yourself actually adding and spending more time looking for things, searching in your day for lots of things. A gratitude jar, this is a great one if you have kids. I've had one, a friend gifted me one a little while back, and I love it. Little notes, they'll put a little post-it notepad inside the jar and a pen, and every so often you just walk by and you jot something down. And then it's so fun at the end of the year to empty out the jar and maybe put dates on the things, and there'll be so many things in there that you haven't. So you kind of get the gratitude exercise the day that you do it, but you get this wonderful sort of celebration of all the gratitude at the end of the year. Thank you notes. There's plenty of times to reach out and open a door and connect with people, saying thank you, you appreciate something that's being done for you, or a kind word. Just saying it out loud and noticing that you've said. Getting really good at it, practicing it, modeling it to your kids, to people around you, saying what you're thankful for, being specific. People love to hear what specific things they've done to make you happy. Putting calendar reminders in, just to check in. You're having trouble making it a habit. Daily checking in with the pal to make sure that you're maybe getting that connection point, which is hard to do these days, and then having this as an exercise or an activity that you both do together. Maybe, yeah, it's just like mindfulness, the noticing and being grateful for the ability to go on a walk, and incorporating your gratitude and thoughts of gratitude while you do another activity. So if you have something that you like to do, you're welcome to share that in the chat box, or take one of these with you and just practice it over the next little while to see how it adds and benefits your day. This is a bonus self-care tip and another strategy. I'm going to be doing, I think that's my wheelhouse and my presentation to the students coming up on the 26th of November. So we'll talk about it more in depthly, but cultivating self-care and making sure that you're doing activities that soothe you. And it's really not about self-care as a word that's bandied around quite often now. It's not just making sure you have a pedicure and doing all these luxury things that you don't think that you have time for. There's actually 8 spheres in our lives that we can be doing self-care in. We can be doing spiritual self-care, financial self-care, professional self-care, all these different areas where you might need to set a boundary or make a connection or get some exercise, do some of the basic, the ones that your mom always reminds you to do. So yeah, this is a great way to look after yourself, be mindful, be grateful, and self-soothe. Great self-care activities to begin with. If you don't have a routine right now, they are the right brain kind of activities, the ones where our left brain gets involved and lists and organizes and does lots of things, but the right brain activities that kind of look to movement, vibrations, sight, sounds, and imagery, doing those kinds of activities that really deactivate that active center, that fight-flight response. So incorporate a couple of those activities is a great place to start. So recapping our lovely presentation from Sarah today, how can we manage the uncertainty that we are experiencing? We give ourselves outlets and space to express and process our emotion. So that's the self-care piece, giving yourself a little bit of time to make sure that you're not just rushing through and highly stressed all the time about everything that's going on, making sure that you have a time to process. Cultivating rational and optimistic thinking. So remembering that ratio that Sarah taught us about, trying to practice that every day when we notice that our mindset is getting a little low and negative. Keeping focused on what matters, our values. That's a great exercise to do, and I'm sure a lot of you have been doing it already just because you're students, so you've got some goals, and your values are very centered on our scholastic goals quite. And this, knowing what our values are, what our goals are, is really clarifying and keeps us focused on the positive. And focusing, that great exercise, the circle exercise, focusing on what's in our control, trying not to dwell and spend too much time on things that are out of our control. Expressing gratitude. So finding 1 or 2 things that we can do daily to not just be positive, but also seeing them as a nice brain activity to release those beautiful healing hormones and neurotransmitters within our system. And then finally, practicing self-care, finding a little routine that works so that we can step away from our screens and look at some exercise, some movement, some imagery, some nature, some vibration, possibly singing, dancing, gentle yoga, those kinds of things that bring our bodies back to center and really look after our thoughts and our emotions. So in the spirit of gratitude, I thought that I would lead you through a grounding exercise today that takes gratitude as its theme. And so it's similar to noticing grounding exercise that many of you may have practiced or done or heard here in these sessions before. I think it was listed as being called Savor the Moment. And so It's again some nice deep belly breaths in and out to start. Get ourselves kind of anchored in the moment. I know how hard it is, but our minds are always so easily pulled in busyness. But let's try to pay particular attention to the feeling of our breath. Or like before, a body scan, something in our bodies so that if there's any tension, we're letting it go as we breathe. Maybe bringing our shoulders down and beginning to orient ourselves towards gratitude. So next, I'd like you to bring to mind a sight that you're grateful for. Maybe it's right in front of you out the window. And close your eyes and think of one, a memory as well. Move through your senses and find one thing, kind of a sight that you appreciate, something that you love seeing. Maybe it's in front of you, maybe it's a color, or just a shadow, the way the light hits in a certain way in the room, the shape of a tree perhaps, movement. Think about the ways that it changes. You don't need to list it, but just observe it. And centering on gratitude, what you see right now, try and feel gratitude that you get to see it like it is. Another couple of breaths in. Let's think about a smell that we appreciate. What's your favorite smell? Coffee in the morning. Know that you know that you're going to be able to wake up with that beautiful smell wafting into your bedroom. What do you notice about that smell that you're grateful for? Does it make you smile? Does it bring up memories? Maybe it's something familiar to you, or something that brings you comfort. Or a scent that might be exciting, kind of stimulating. Concentrate and feel grateful that it ignites you, makes you feel wonderful somehow. And then moving on, we're going to think about the sounds around you. Maybe there's one right now. I can actually hear someone mowing their lawn, which is kind of fun. So someone is doing a final lawn mow, and I love that smell. So I can hear that going on outside. Makes me think of summer and nice things that I really enjoy. So we're shifting our attention to things that we can hear, our ears, sounds. What's it like to really listen? Let's be grateful that we can. How many sounds can you notice? Are they close by or far away? Maybe it's a piece of music that you remember. It brings you joy. Maybe it's just the sound of your breathing. How grateful we are just to be able to breathe. Next, we'll turn to the world of touch. Maybe there's something nearby, soft and warm. You can reach out and feel it. Maybe it's the thought of hugging someone that you love, and that fills us with gratitude to be in relation with some other human. Maybe there's I can reach out, well, not quite, but I can reach out and pet my dog. I always enjoy doing that. That's a nice grounding piece for me, and I'm so grateful that he's around sometimes. Think of that texture, the material, the warmth, the skin, the fur. Let it kind of ignite your gratitude. So nice to feel things. Now take a moment to look around, shift up side to side, and appreciate how much effort went into making all the things you see that you can use that are around you, that help you every day. Look at the design and the details. Someone worked on those. Someone designed that. Even the packaging that's wrapped around maybe a package or piece of mail that's come to you. Someone put that together to get to you. You can be grateful for that. And let us try to be grateful for all the talent that went into all the things around us that make our lives easier, better. You can appreciate that. Take a moment to appreciate that. And as we end this, let's try to carry this attitude of gratitude with you throughout the rest of the day. Maybe there's a way that you can offer thanks, push this forward into your day for anybody who does anything for you. You can be extra gracious and offer them your beautiful sentiments. They helped you in their job or they noticed you, and you can offer them the same appreciation and how noticing makes being grateful really lovely. So I'm really grateful to be doing this grateful gratitude practice with you. And I really, really appreciate everybody showing up today and putting this effort in, taking some time for yourself, being present with us. And I'm hoping that you all have a beautiful day after this. So maybe we have taken you down a notch or two. Let's check out. Same exercise again. Where are we at? I know we're running a little over time, so where are we at on a scale of 1 to 10 with your stress levels? How are you feeling emotionally? You can scratch down some of your thoughts. Oh, there's a 2. That's great. That's really great. I know there was a few 3.5s, and I'll admit that was one of them was mine. So I think I've come down a notch just from doing those 2 grounding exercises. So I'm putting in a 2.5 for myself. Yeah, great. That's nice to see. It's nice to witness that taking an hour, calming down, doing some mindfulness practices really does do the trick. Thank you, Daryl. I do have a soothing voice when I'm doing mindfulness exercises, and I have a screechy voice when I'm telling my kids to get out of the house. So I am on a scale of 1 to 5 most of the time. So this is nice to practice for me as well. I'm grateful to be soothing at times. Thank you for saying that. Great. So this is us in photo form here. Gemma's not with us today, but she's an excellent counselor. And there's Sarah and my headshots. And we are always available at the email provided here and through the counseling page on the Royal Roads website. We're not really available in the library right now. Hope to be so in 2021. But yeah, feel free when you're feeling a 4 or 5 and feeling very stressed out, feel free to get in touch with any one of us to get the things off your chest and explain how you're doing, and we can help you with some of the same strategies today or different ones. And I'm so grateful that so many of you showed up today to learn some practices and think about your life in a mindful way.
Hey, thank you so much, Frances, for helping us end that session on such a relaxing and beautiful note. And I know we've run a few minutes over, so thank you for those of you who were able to give us an extra 5 minutes of your time. There are a few resources here. I know they're hard to read, so if anyone is interested in learning more or reading or seeing any of the videos that have informed some of these, you're welcome, or some of these strategies and what we talked about today. I'm just going to write our counseling@royalroads.ca. That's how you can get in touch with us if you'd like a copy of the slides, or like Frances said, if you're interested in extending any of these conversations or have questions. And you can book appointments online, which is usually the easiest. So we would love to hear from you, love to meet you and talk more about any of these topics, and hope that you'll join us over the next few weeks for the time management session next week, and then Frances's session on self-care in a heavily digital world. And then our last session in early December is going to be around what was it called, Frances? Holiday compassion and how to care for ourselves and others during a pandemic holiday season. So that's a bit of a new one for us. So we're looking forward to having that conversation as well. So thank you all again for joining us today. And yes, Nicole, the slides are, if you want to just email the counseling@royalroads inbox, I can send you the
will be as well somewhere too, I think, right?
Yeah, the recording link. Yes, if we can send that to you as well. I think we're just getting that sorted out, but that will be available as well, and happy to share that.
Super. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take good care of yourselves, and we hope we'll see you again in the coming weeks.
Great. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Frances.